Hi, I'm Joe, Content Coordinator for the Purdue OWL. If you're a new graduate teacher in the English department and you're anything like me back when I started, you may be feeling a little overwhelmed by all the duties that now lay before you. Well, have no fear. You don't have to shoulder those duties alone. The free services offered at the Purdue Writing Lab can help you be the best teacher you can be. Our tutors are always available to work with your students on their writing, and our data shows that undergrads who use the Writing Lab get higher grades. And by the way, grad students do too. We also offer group workshops, writers' rooms, and even special events for ESL students. All of these things help ensure that you aren't the only person your students can turn to when they need writing help. What a relief, huh? Now we're going to hear from two experienced ICAP teachers, Elizabeth and Isaac, who also work in the Writing Lab. It's our hope that by sharing their experiences, they'll help illustrate all of the cool ways that the Writing Lab can help graduate TAs.
My tutoring experience impacted the way I responded to student work, and also how I ask questions and coach students to problem solve. When I created assignment sheets, I kept my student audience in mind, so how they might understand or receive the information I'm requesting of them. Also, my lesson plans unintentionally mirrored some of the pedagogies I adapted as a tutor. I would also talk to tutors and staff about my lesson plans from time to time, which really helped me talk about argument and research, topics that are somewhat difficult to teach, but also to understand and learn at the same time.
So typically when I'm teaching 106, I try to get students into the Writing Lab as soon as possible. So that means maybe taking them on a tour of the Writing Lab, having the Writing Lab staff walk them through what we do, and I also will tell them about the Writing Lab and pitch the Writing Lab to them as a place where they can work on their writing and develop their skills. And I try to do that pretty early on in the semester. I think writing is a really collaborative task. Like, there's this idea that, oh, if you're a really good writer, what that means is you just go off and write in like your garret or attic and then come down with a fully polished manuscript. And that's just not how it works. Writing is a conversation. So from the very beginning, like, it's always focused towards an audience. It's always focused towards a community. And so it only makes sense that if writing is this conversation, that you involve other people in the conversation and make sure, like, okay, am I actually saying what I think I'm saying? Am I actually like meeting the assignment requirements? Are there things I'm not seeing in my own writing?
So I'm a PhD student who writes quite often, and without feedback, all of my documents would look a lot different. They would have important details missing. I think sharing your work with others means that you're inviting added development to your work, a development that just can't always be seen internally.
So when I'm teaching 106, I typically try to make sure my students are coming to the Writing Lab as soon as possible. And what that usually means is I have them come visit the lab and have one of the tutors walk them through, okay, like, this is what the lab is, this is what they do here. But then also, like, I'll give them the Writing Lab spiel in class. Like, I've been in writing centers for for pretty much ever, and so, like, I have that that kind of like talk down, and so I'll just like tell them about the Writing Center class and push them to go as they're working on their different projects.
I even talked about how I use the Writing Lab for my own writing, and I do this quite often. So before I even started working at the Writing Lab, I would share with my ICAP students about how I'm writing this article, or I'm writing, this paper for my own classes, and I go to the Writing Lab pretty consistently to work on that. And that tends to be received pretty well by students. So I quite often encourage writers to engage in conversation with their instructors, professors, and advisors. Sometimes my job as a tutor isn't about explaining how to write something, but rather explaining that I simply just don't have the answers. What works in my field might not work in theirs. So there's differences in assignments and also across disciplines.
I will push them to seek help from advisors or from their professors if they have specific disciplinary questions, or if they have questions about the assignment or how it's structured. I think that's pretty much the only time I'll have them go look for help somewhere else. Like pretty much always it's like, okay, here's a writing lab, go to the writing lab. I don't force them, obviously, because I think that leads to kind of sessions where students are less invested in the work they're doing. But I definitely push pretty hard for everyone to show up at the writing lab at some point in the semester.
I have right now about 4 reoccurring writers, which almost all of them have explicitly told me that the work we're doing together collaboratively has really helped them. Sometimes they'll write it in the actual appointment form and say, thank you so much for your feedback, or thank you so much for the conversations that we had recently. It's really helped me a lot as a writer, and also just, thinking about the subject matter that I'm talking about. I
was working with a student who was applying for a pretty big job in Indianapolis, directing a series of hospitals. And a couple months later, I heard back, and she sent me a thank you note because she got the job. I've worked with people who are prepping for academic job interviews and had them get jobs. I've had people get scholarships, and those are all really tangible ways you can see, okay, what I'm actually doing, how I'm working with people is making an impact in their lives. And I think that's one of the best feelings.
So, in short, ICAP teaching and the Purdue Writing Lab go together like mustard and mayo. I've put some links in the description that can direct you to some of our most relevant services, and I've linked a video here that explains how to sign up for tutoring. Hope to see your students, or you, soon.